we ready? Sarah, everything ready to go? All right, let's call the the Finance Committee meeting of Monday, June 20th, 2 p.m. to order. If everyone could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask for someone to make a motion to approve today's agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fallowing. A second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Any discussion? No discussion. We will approve today's agenda without objection. And there is no objection that I can see. Let's move on then to approval of minutes from May 16th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve those
Ms.
minutes.
Howard, a second, please.
Second.
Any discussion of the minutes from May 16th? Do not see any. We'll go ahead and approve that without objection. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, they are approved. Let's move on then to citizens' comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak today in our citizens' comments? And Sarah, do we have anyone online? All right, so no citizens' comments today. Let's keep moving then to number 7 on our agenda, and that will be division update from Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Butts. Thank you, Mr. Butts. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. Just briefly, a few things that our departments have been up to since we last spoke. The Register of Deeds office has 3 new Scan Pro machines. Those were installed on Tuesday of this past week. Those machines will enable users in the public deed room to view and print a much better quality of document from the microfilm and aperture cards. These machines replace the old microfilm reader printers that I inherited when I got here in 2007, and they've become obsolete and expensive and very difficult to repair, so Ms. Green has made that change. In addition...
Dale, they were obsolete when you got here.
You're right. You're absolutely right. In addition to that, she has had 4 new computers installed for public use in that same deed room. This now brings the deed room up to speed when it comes to technology and might even create available space for future use in that area of the admin building. In Procurement Services, they've been busy creating how-to documents, which are available on the county's intranet site under county forms. Among those are how to enter and approve a requisition, how to approve or how to purchase, how to do a purchase order inquiry, how to do an account and a vendor inquiry. And of course, the staff is willing to conduct in-person training for any department who requests them to do so, and they've done that on a couple of occasions. Then finally, our budget director, Ms. Pinky Harriet, represented the county in a NACO webinar last Thursday as one of the first counties to use ClearGov to form its budget document. It was a nationwide webinar to help other budget and finance directors understand the software from a government officer's standpoint, which our department heads enjoyed using the ClearGov software this time around. I told you it'd be brief, so that's it, unless you guys have any questions for me.
I got one question.
All right.
Did the shirt come with the glasses, or did the glasses come with the shirt?
Glasses came first, actually.
Okay.
But
All right, you look good.
noticing. Yeah.
All right, let's move on then to our agenda items. Number 8, discussion and presentation of year-to-date financial statements for fiscal year 2022 from our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Hayes Williams.
Good afternoon, Chairman and council members. Presentation. Okay. It's going. There we go. There's our Finance report for May 2022, a little bit better. No UNC basketball players there. But anyway, and that's a picture looking over the city of Beaufort, the Memorial Bridge. So, at sunset. Can you go to the next slide, please? Just want to touch over the financial highlights for the past, and some of them kind of happened in May and June, and we're going, because we kind of have feet in both months, but it's since last time that I saw you. We received the Homestead Exemption from the state. The South Carolina DOR sent that. It was about $4.7 million, and it's divided up between Beaufort counties, the public service districts, the fire districts. It's all allocated based on assessed values. To the general fund, it was about $2,038,000 representing revenue. And for those of you that don't know, the Homestead Exemption is a complete exemption on the taxes of the first $50,000 of fair market value on your legal residence for homeowners over age 65, and people that are totally and permanently disabled or legally blind. So we got that in. Another thing that we did, this was actually last week, was our third payment to the Technical College of the Low Country for CAI, for the Culinary Arts Institute. This was a collaboration between the county, Beaufort County School District, and the town of Bluffton. The majority of ours the $500,000 comes from the MCIP over in Bluffton, where the Culinary Arts Institute is located. So that was our 500, and the town of Bluffton's 50. The school district paid their $125,000. The MCIP didn't have enough revenue in it or fund balance to pay an additional 125, which will be paid by the school district in years 11 through 20. But that was made, so I know the technical college is happy about that. We got our second tranche of ARPA money, which Eric covered in county council for $18 million. And we had 3 sales of a property, and they all kind of happened at the end of May. We had Myrtle Park for $600,000 and 2 different Page Point properties, one for 84 and one for, what was it, 94? So, so we had those. We're currently kind of going on the dark side of the moon right now, and we're trying to get with our departments and going over carryovers and roll forwards. Going forward, they've had trouble getting stuff in and getting some of the projects complete, and I hope to report on that to y'all at the next finance committee meeting. But we're actually having sit downs with the departments, going over the POs that they may need to roll over, and should have an exhaustive list to you by the end of by the next finance committee. You go to the next slide. I brought this slide up again and the last time, and it's a breakdown of our expenditures by categories, and you have personnel, service, purchases, services, supplies, capital outlay, subsidies, the others, contingencies, other expenditures, and transfers out. On the original that was sent out, one of our cell formulas was messed up, and transfers out and other expenditures were flip-flopped. And so the one that is up there has corrected that error. But as you see, you know, our biggest piece is personnel services, followed by purchase services, then subsidies to others. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is a breakdown of our revenues. We're still doing really well. As I said, we had about $1.6 million that we don't normally have for sales of property. But we're actually over 100% of budget, 2.73%. The majority of this is in ad valorem taxes, which are above where they should be because of sales and transfers of property, which we've talked about that in the past. Charges for services, which the Register of Deeds is having another record year, and then the miscellaneous revenue for the 1.6 million for the property sales. So. Next slide. The expenditures are lagging. We're at 87% of total budget. Right now, our actual expenditures are about 113 million. By the end of the year, I expect that we're going to have about $10.5 million because we have 3 payrolls left. and each payroll represents roughly about $3 million worth of expenses to the general fund when you include your employee taxes and other benefits. And we have three full ones, and then we'll have a partial one as you do the year-end accrual. And then we have anticipated expenditures of $5 to $6 million. So probably going to end the year with $127 to $128 million in expenses. Trying to get there. As I said, we're probably going to have a carryover, and we've already talked to you about our surplus budget earlier this year. So, what the final number is will probably be September before we have a really good number, because we're just kind of on the dark side of the moon until they can get all their services taken care of, and we have 2 months of accruing accounts payable and revenues. So if y'all have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? Anyone online have a question? Mr. Williams, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
two notes for council with regarding to the sale of the property. One of the things I wanted to let the committee know is that with regards to the Page Point property, that's in that group of properties that we're selling that we own, that you all had asked us to earmark that money for potential affordable housing projects in the future. We are putting that money in the general fund, but we're keeping a tab of that amount so that if we do need to use it for affordable housing in the future, it'll be available. Second thing is with regards to the sale of the Myrtle Park property, during the next finance committee, whenever we have that in July or August, we will be bringing forth a proposal by the Economic Development Corporation for them to receive the proceeds of that $600,000 because apparently there was some verbal commitment made previously that once the property was sold, that's where the money would go. I just wanted you all to be aware of those two things so that it would not catch you off guard, and so that you all can be thinking about that prior to the next finance committee meeting with regards to the sale of Myrtle Park.
Okay. You did say verbal commitment, correct? So.
That's what I've been told. I'm not saying there was or there wasn't. I'm just saying that I've been told that there was. So we need to formalize that recommendation and that action if that's your desire to do so.
Okay, we'll look for that then. Yeah, Stu.
Do we know who verbalized that?
Yeah, I don't remember it.
I don't remember it. That's a rhetorical question.
Let me, can I comment?
Yep, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I had an understanding that, those funds will go back into economic development for them to further do some more projects and stuff. So that's my understanding of that.
I think that's how we're moving forward right now, and then he's going to come present to us again at the next finance committee meeting.
It was brought in front of the Finance Committee about a year and a half ago. At that time, Finance gave a head nod to the funds being put back into the economic development, but asked that once the property was closed, that they would come back forward for your confirmation and to bring it forward to council for it to be allocated to them.
Good, okay.
Next item?
Anything additional?
No, sir.
Okay, I think we're good. So then we'll look forward to their presentation, get them on the agenda for next meeting. Once it closes, we'll get them to come in and do a presentation for us. Great, thank you. All right, let's move on now to agenda item number 9. And that would be presentation of the 2023 marketing plan for the Greater Beaufort Port Royal Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think we have Mr. Wells. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you coming back again for us. And again, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
It's a pleasure to be here with you guys, and thank you for the opportunity to serve once again as the DMO for Northern Beaufort County. As I kind of wait for the presentation to come up there, I want to make sure I'm recognizing the time of what we're going to be putting together here today. So I want to cover with 3 things that I want to focus on. I want to celebrate a little bit of what happened in 21-22. I have to celebrate some of the highlights that we had here in Northern Beaufort County because they're quite promising, and you can see them right here. Just want to start. We generated about $9.5 million in publicity value for Northern Beaufort County. That's everything from, excuse me, Condé Nast recognition of top 27 towns in America to the South's best small town in Southern living. It's done with 105 story pitches, and this is where we celebrate our partners that make up the northern part of the county, and we're so excited to be partners with them and celebrate in that fact. While not a record year, definitely one coming off the 2020, 2021 that we're kind of proud of, to be able to start that recovery with people taking recognition in what was taking place. The second thing that I want to mention in the success, though, and bear with me as I flip through here real quick because I want to be conscious of your time, is take a look at these numbers here. Since 2019, we've seen growth in revenue and occupancy far exceeding what we had projected. Coming out of 2019, we've seen revenue grow 21%, which does have an effect to your bottom line through accommodations tax
committee meeting.
collection
Can I call you
and
back
fees
when it's
generated
done?
that way. But that is in northern Beaufort County area. And so we're very proud of that. That's with the addition of 3 new hotels in our market, excuse me,
Great.
and with the addition of some short-term rentals that have also come on. These are some things that usually and typically when you see more supply enter, when there's a lack of demand, you see the opposite of this, but high demand, and we've been blessed to have that high demand in our area. Now let's talk about what's going on. If you don't mind, I'm going real speed quick. Sorry about that, everybody. I just want to get down here to our budget because I know that's what we're here talking about today. And then I'll back it back up if you don't mind. We have a total investment of about $1 million. You can see the contribution that Beaufort County is going to make at 44% of our budget. The way that we break that down is this format. 71% will go to marketing promotion. You have 12% in sales. That is our ability to recruit leisure travel, group travel through motor coach, meetings, association meetings, small business, that kind of stuff of that nature, as well as weddings and reunions. And then, of course, operations and visitor services. Now, our visitor services, if you're not familiar, deals both in fulfillment of visitor guide requests on the simplest form, and also people walking into the visitor center located at 713 Craven Street at the historic Beaufort Arsenal, which is something that we are proud to be able to open the doors back up after the pandemic. Our flow of visitors coming in the visitor center has been substantial, which is kind of different. If I'd had to sit up here and projected what would that look like 5 years ago, I'd said this probably would be shut down. Here we are in 2022, and we're having one of our record years as far as visitors back into the visitor center. And that's an interesting tidbit as we move forward. That is a screen that you're going to have to blow up on your own. I apologize. I tried my hardest to get it up there, and I apologize. I will leave this presentation for you guys for the record. Thank you. This is our breakdown. We spend, of that 71%, we spend right around $400,000 in overall marketing and sales success. And that is targeted through a very rich data-centric marketing plan. Now, I don't have to explain to you guys just how costs are rising. Oh, ad costs are rising as well. And in order for us to spend in a worthwhile manner that makes sense to our partners and for you guys that are investing, we want to make sure we're hitting our proper target. So we are seeking those that may be in seeking outdoor rec, food and culture have to be in the target that we're looking for. Hey, our core demographic did not change as far as where they're from. Charlotte, Greenville, Atlanta, those 3 markets are still predominantly our market, and we are a drive market. Therefore, we will continue to present the destination to those drive markets. But something of note happened here, and I'm going to back out of this page if you could reduce it. I want to show you all a heat map, if you will. This is for us data nerds, if you will. We kind of get excited about these type of things. This is a heat map of visitors to Beaufort, and if you can take a look at the right side of that screen, maybe blow it up a little bit, you'll notice that the city of Beaufort and the town of Port Royal too saw a lot of traffic coming out of the Florida market this past year, something we haven't seen in quite some time. And we thought to ourselves, what are Floridians doing coming back to Beaufort area? A little further diving, you realize that this market is doing the historical tour. They're hitting Savannah, Beaufort, and Charleston, an itinerary that we were not a part of just 6 years ago. And with the addition of of the reconstruction monument in northern Beaufort County, and that 4-part station has been very instrumental for us to be able to achieve some of this historical context as we try to ignite that. I show that because take a look at Fripp Island. Fripp Island has almost zero from the Florida area, which really symbolizes the need for, that beach traffic. Floridians don't need to leave Florida beaches to come to the Fripp Island beaches. But in this case, the core markets continue to drive travel. This is why data matters. It's why we're investing in the research and the data to make sure that we can spend the public money in a very thoughtful manner, but also be good stewards of that funding. So without further ado, I know I'm running past my 10 to 15 minute time frame. I want to recognize that we are good to go with any questions you may have or people online.
Good, so explain that real quick, the
Sure.
heat map, so that is,
So this is Fripp Island. So what we've taken is just the pure schematics of it is that we put a geo frame over Fripp Island. And as basically phones pop in there, we start picking up where these people are originating from and when they actually make a conversion into the market by either booking or staying overnight. And what you see here is our core markets are very similar to what would be for the downtown city of Beaufort or Port Royal. You have Atlanta, you have Savannah, you have Charleston, you have these Charlotte. And what is missing from, say, it's not working there, I can't. Thank you. Notice in Beaufort, the heat map drops down into Florida, which shows a little difference of who the markets are. This is also a sign of market share that we were able to pick up coming out of the pandemic. The Southeast really saw a return a lot quicker than other parts of the country. And being in the coastal region, Beaufort saw its fair share of growth in that market share. This is a kind of a heat map that kind of triggers that a little bit.
very cool. Any questions from Mr. Wells? Good, Alice, go.
Did you see it tick up when they started letting the families come back to Paris Island?
Most definitely. And that's, of course, and I think that's where you start seeing some of the Philly, New York.
That's
Look
what
at the map here in Beaufort. You'll notice that there's a lot of, there's some picks up of the Mississippi River, our area. You'll see some dots to the west of the Tennessee line. Definitely probably some families coming from that area.
For graduation.
However, you will not see a lot of those dots in the Fripp Island market, which shows our two core demographics. This is why we are spending the research and data mining so that we can, be able to articulate it a little bit better. It's one thing to have subjective data. It's another thing to have objective data. That's what we're doing it for.
Okay. Mr. Robin, go ahead.
Yeah, two questions, Rob. My sense has always been that the Hilton Head and the north of the Broad build on each other. 1 + 1 makes 3. Do you have any sense of, how many people do both versus of the folks that come?
It's a great question. We haven't dove into that information here, but I do know from recent studies, and not to speak for them, but some of the Hilton Head data indicated at some point like 33% of people take day trips off the
Day
island.
trips, okay.
We see a lot of Hilton Head market share in ours. They're going to be visitors, so they're going to have a different zip code. And so there is some alignment from being that close to one of the best destinations, in the South, such as Hilton Head. So we're going to naturally draw from their, 2.5 million visitors. We're naturally going to draw, just like Charleston visitation grew in Beaufort too. We're starting to see a lot more day trippers out of Charleston. But these markets that I'm showing in the heat map tend to be overnighters.
It's also seemed to me, if I look at the Savannah to Charleston, we're someplace in the 20 to 30 million visitors. And it's a fairly short corridor and probably as much concentration of visitors as any place in the country. And so the fact that you're kind of in the middle, we're kind of in the middle, probably attracts some people from both of those markets in addition to the Hilton Head market.
It has benefited. It sure doesn't hurt being located centrally in the three great destinations such as you've listed. I will say that as of just 5 years ago, we did not see the Savannah, Charleston demographic as heavy as we are now. And so the port of origin coming out of Savannah or Charleston means that the trip destination starts there and ends at the other part of the itinerary. And in years past, we haven't been a part of that itinerary in maybe say the depth that we wanted to. Now we are. And I think a lot of that comes from just the brand awareness of Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands as an independent body. That's a cool feeling. That's definitely a success story.
Lastly, any feel as to what the split is between overnight visitors and day visitors?
Well, in Beaufort, the data that we're tracking right now, and I have to go back and look, but the last quarter, it was somewhere around 75% were overnight visitors. At this
Overnight,
point.
okay. That's
And that is, please understand, that's Beaufort, Port Royal, and the Sea Islands, which covers the Fripp. So there's
Sure.
quite a bit of room count.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Fallowen, go ahead.
Thanks. Rob, I want to commend you. You've done a great job so far this past year, and we're really, really happy you're at the helm here. I'm wondering, I hope to get your thoughts on how competitive the market is going to be for us now that everything seems to be opening up post-pandemic. How much competition are we going to see for our part of this, our share of this market, and who are our competitors?
Well, I definitely think competition has already started. We've seen that. You know, I've talked to, multiple trip planning and the data research groups that have already shown that, where in the past we didn't have to compete even with international travel in the last several years because of the pandemic. Now that's opened back up, and people who had that pent-up demand to travel, both now, internationally and domestic, are now having to take that advantage, and they're able to travel. So our competition has expanded. We've been open for quite some time ahead of our partners. Now people are starting to move back into the urban areas as part of adding that to it. Again, Beaufort in the area has never succeeded in being a volume-based travel destination. We're only going to be able to meet the expectations of visitors for those who are seeking what we have to offer. So if you're looking for like urban nightlife, that may not be our mix. But if you're looking for outdoor recreation or history and culture, we're gonna meet your expectations and exceed it most often. I hope that answers your question. I may have danced around it just a touch.
It did. Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions for Mr. Wells? Rob, thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you here. You
Thank you
guys
very
do
much.
a
Thank you.
great job, so thank you.
Yes, excellent.
All right, let's move on then to number 11 on the agenda. Number 10 on the agenda. Recommend approval of a resolution amending the Beaufort County Personal Handbook section under holidays. And I think, Ms. Ward, you're going to present us that?
Yes, sir. This is an amendment to the Personnel Handbook, adding on the ability for the county administrator to, at his discretion, provide staff with an additional holiday the day after Christmas. Going through it, I thought this would be the best way to rewrite the policy and allow for that extra day off after Christmas, because otherwise there is over a dozen different ways in which the holiday falls and how it affects the weekend and so on and so forth. So this would be an amendment, like I said, to allow the administrator at his discretion to add on that extra day after Christmas when it is appropriate.
Does it need to say day after Christmas, or can it be the day before Christmas? Because usually if it falls like on a Tuesday, you'd want to have the Monday off, and that's the day before. So I've noticed in the documents it says day after for everything. So how does that, is that only day after, or can this be done day before as well?
It is an observed holiday for the day after, and that would be because the way that the calendar falls, if a Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, which is already a holiday within our handbook, falls on a weekend, you automatically get the Friday or the Monday off. And so if it falls on a Tuesday, which is Christmas Eve, you would receive the Thursday off. And we have a floating holiday if somebody wants to take the Monday off.
Just a question, because I was thinking about the calendar. Any other questions for Ms. Ward?
I don't have a question. I'm ready to proceed. I'm going to vote against this, I think, because I really like the idea that county council gets involved with the calendar on a yearly basis. We get to receive a recommendation from the administrator at the start as the holiday approaches, and so the employees, really are happy with county council. It's like sometimes we don't get to give them the pay raise we want, but we can give them a holiday at our discretion. And of course, we will always, I think, every time it's been offered, it's been brought up, we've always voted for it. So I like the idea that county council is involved in that decision. And so I'm going to vote against this when it comes up.
Mr. Glover?
I think since I've been on council, we've been asked to give something during Christmas. So it's almost as we're doing it every year anyway. So why make a recommendation, why don't we just dedicate 3 days for Christmas? I mean, we do it anyway. Since I've been on council, it's been done. I don't think there's been a day, a year that it has not been done.
So this would allow for the administrator to add on that third day that you're referring to that you typically approve,
You're gonna do it anyway.
because it's typically brought forward to council anyways.
So
The way that
I'm
it's-
saying, why not even recommend putting it in 3 days for
If
Christmas?
you write the personnel handbook stating that the day after Christmas is a holiday, what you create potentially is if Christmas Day falls on a Saturday and Christmas Eve is on a Friday, you would then be receiving off Monday anyways, because the way our personnel handbook is written, you receive the day following the weekend. So if it falls on a weekend, then you
Give
get,
me an example of a day that you would not grant, a year that you would not grant that extra day.
so in that example, if Christmas Eve is on a Friday, Christmas Day is on a Saturday, pursuant to our handbook, you would automatically receive that following Monday off anyways, because the holiday falls over the weekend.
I follow that.
And then, in that case, if you were to say the day after Christmas, say we blanketly state that the day after Christmas is now a holiday, that means that we now have a holiday on a Sunday as well as a Saturday. So then you receive off Monday, and you arguably would also receive off Tuesday. So now the staff is receiving 5 days off instead of just the 3. And
There
this
will
is
be
part
an
of the-
opportunity, if you had 3 days for Christmas, you're saying that there may be a weekend where you may have 5 days off completely.
Yes.
Okay.
So rather than going through the 12 different scenarios that could occur because of where and when it falls, that's why I drafted it this manner, so that it's at the county administrator's discretion, so that we're not having 5-6 days off. Rather than the intention is to provide staff with the day after Christmas when it doesn't fall in one of those scenarios. Does that answer your question?
Now, is this something that, whether we approve or deny today, does this still go before council to be voted on, or?
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
All right, so, we have this before us, and if someone would like to make a motion, we can push this to council, but would need that motion to do that. Is there anyone here that would like to make that motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Dawson, go ahead.
Councilman Dawson, I would move that we approve the recommendation.
All right, is there a second?
I will second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Ms. Howard has seconded it. Is there any discussion?
I'm going to vote against it, sir, so if you want to do a roll.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, just one other comment. I don't feel too strongly about this, but it does seem to be one of the potential unintended consequences is that we have, I don't know, whatever it would be, an 8 or 9 day period. And we've got a lot of the time that we're closed down, so we maybe only have 2 or 3 days, and there's a lot of year-end types of things that typically happen, at least in business. I don't know about in government, but I think Brian makes an interesting point.
Yeah, so let me, if I might, weigh in on this so you understand the county administrator's position on it. I'm fine, as long as I'm county administrator, bringing this before council every year. I agree with Councilmember Fluellen. I think it's a very nice gesture for you all as council to be able to vote to do that for the employees. I don't know that it's necessary for you to vote to do that, since we are a county administrative form of government, but I think it's a good thing for you all to be able to do that. We are doing this at the request of some on council to bring this forward to you all, because when we brought it last year, you all said, why do we do this every year? Could we not just make this a standard third holiday? So county administrator is fine either way you want to do it. I think there are some arguments to be made, or I think Councilmember Fluellen's argument about you all being able to weigh in this on an annual basis so that we can get it right each year. I'm fine with that. But if you all want to not do that, then we need to adopt this policy.
All right, any other discussion before we go to a roll call vote? All right, Sarah, we're going to go ahead and have you do a roll call vote, if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
No.
Councilmember McKellen,
No.
Councilmember Glover,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodman,
No.
Chairman Passmore,
Yes.
and
Guys.
Councilmember Flewelling.
No.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 no, 4 yes.
So the resolution fails. All right, let's move on. Number 11, recommend approval of resolution to authorize the county administrator to sign necessary documents with Beaufort Memorial Hospital for the funding and launch of a pilot program.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hank Amundsen. For those that I haven't met, and I'll probably be meeting you all more as ARPA begins to build steam. This first program is very exciting. You have the resolution and the MOU in hand. This is something that Jared and Heather Rath and the committee that looked at how to put together these programs had put the idea on paper, and since I've arrived, we've had good momentum build between Beaufort Memorial, TCL, USCB, and the high school system. So what is before you is a program, and I'll give you a couple highlights. The idea is to increase the nursing population overall. And it's not just one specific trade within the nursing pipeline, it's to have a more steady flow so that for regular health reasons, and most importantly, if there's ever another pandemic, that we have a better system in place with which to handle it. As is in your documents, Beaufort Memorial is that public entity that serves our underserved throughout the county. They have come up with what they call the PATH program, people achieving their highest. The entrants are not just high school kids and or college kids. It is also for those that are already in the medical world that might want to ladder up within the clinical world. I went to the first class of internal launch at Beaufort Memorial. It was exciting because some people that are in the clinical setting but not in the clinical occupation are transitioning from housekeeping, engineering, et cetera, into the medical world because they're already part of that environment. The kids in the high school area are not just taking classes, which Beaufort High School, Beaufort County Schools, because it's multiple high schools, has committed to grow that. It's not just classes. Beaufort Memorial is bringing them in for volunteer programs, to expose them to the clinical world, to, again, build that interest even before it's time to take those classes. So this first year, as there's a 2-year program, is exciting because the soft launch internally doubled what their expectation was. And within all the institutions, we feel like this is a success. So we ask for your favorable approval of this resolution.
I'd like to make a motion.
All right, Ms. Howard's made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rodman is the second. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment. This is a great program. I go to the Beaufort Memorial Hospital Board meetings. They're excited about it. They've just been overwhelmed with the number of high school students that want to be part of it. We've got a shortage in every category, CNAs, nurses, phlebotomists, and we need this. So it's great use of the funds.
Mr. Glover, go ahead.
Quick question. What happens, I know you have 2 years. What happens the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th years?
Well, the purpose of these funds is to demonstrate in this pilot program that it's beneficial.
Go ahead.
And
Once you find out that it's beneficial.
then it becomes something that would potentially be worth funding over time. And that's where some of these upper dollars are useful because it allows you to take on a pilot program that you might not otherwise do because this one I think is very low risk, but there is risk involved where some people don't want to put something on the line. They're not willing to risk what they have for what they can have. And in this case, it's already shown dividends in the interest. And again, through that full pipeline of medical services, this becomes something that actually helps the system over time and could be multiple entities that fund it.
So this pilot program, you're telling me that if it's successful, you'll be recommending the county continue to support it in some form?
Potentially, and additionally, I believe that it'll be something that'll be replicated far beyond here.
Thank you.
Brian, go ahead. You're on mute, Brian.
Hi, Hank. How are you doing?
Pretty well, how are you?
Doing well. So, I noticed the funding is $700,000 for this 1 year. Is that correct?
No, it's actually $350 for the first year,
Okay.
during which monitoring and performance measurements will happen for the second year, which might not happen in an exact calendar year from now. It could be farther out if the funds aren't expended. And we also want to see proof
How much
of the
in the
numbers.
second and successive years?
It's $350 per year for 2 years.
Okay. What exactly is it funding? I see the list here. Can you give me the types, the highlights of it for people who might not have? Well, I see it's up on the screen now.
Sure. So a lot of the tuition is taken care of by other funding sources. This is to take some of the supplies, uniforms, testing, et cetera. Additionally, for those people that, as we know, a lot of people have a job that would like to have a better job, but can't risk job one to get job two. This is to take care of some childcare issues, some in-between payment stipends to compensate when that person's not at work so that they can better theirs and their family's quality of life. So it's some pay stipend gap filling, some supplies, and other items such as that.
Thanks. So basically, this is one of the ARPA money programs that we're talking about. Is this one that was contemplated when we originally gave the original guidelines for how we would use it?
Yes, sir. This is one of the original presented items at your retreat.
Okay. And so the last question, I guess, is do you have any idea where the money is going to come from once that ARPA money is gone?
No, but that discussion has begun already, potentially through the hospital and other areas. But we need to demonstrate success before we even feel like it's worth asking for. And that's why this initial enrollment shows that first step, but we need to see it happen over time.
Okay. Thank you. I guess this next comment is for the administrator. I know that a lot of these programs that we're funding with ARPA money are wonderful programs. I don't doubt that. But the permanent long-term funding is not something that the county can handle. I want to make sure that that although I won't be on council when that happens, when that money is gone and you come and it's attempted to have the general fund take advantage, take that money to pay for those programs. I want to make sure that council at the time understands its options in continuing funding something that was originally intended to be a limited life expectancy. I just am highlighting it for you now, Mr. Administrator, so you'll, when I appear at a county council meeting to, talk about it, everybody knows why.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're aware of that, and we'll make sure that future councils know that.
Right, thanks.
Great. Stu, go ahead.
Maybe another way to ask the question would be, out of the money, is some of it additional heads that would then be at risk at the end of the 2 years? Are there actual people that are hired as part of this $350 a year?
Well, Beaufort Memorial has hired a program coordinator to help handle these individuals through the process.
It's none of our funds are going for that.
Well, part of it is to help them with funding that coordinator.
Okay.
Because shepherding somebody through and organizing their schedules, et cetera, is best, we felt, housed at Beaufort Memorial as opposed to at the individual institutions that are the inputs, more at this hub. But that would be the one additional.
One person, okay.
Beaufort Memorial has stepped up in other ways. Their contribution is not all quantified on this list, where they have hired, they do the clinical instruction for all these students in-house. They do a lot of the on-campus clinical instruction enhancement that can't be done at the school level.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just one quick question. 3 times the enrollment and you max out at 36. So you're telling me that roughly right now there's generally about 12 students in the nursing program?
Do you mean at which school?
Although I was looking at the numbers here on your budget and it says you want to do it 3 times.
And there's actually tripling the enrollment at each school.
That's the word triple.
Right, and the funding is finite, and it may go into smaller portions per person as the numbers increase. But, for example, Currently this year, in the past year, the high school, for example, put forth 8 CNAs. They feel like in the coming year, that's already going to triple. And there are some funds that will come with them because of the joint enrollment situation. This is to make the program whole.
So if I'm looking at this right, 36, 2 years at 72 nurses? No?
No, there's going to be more than that because there's actually even 65 internal per year at Beaufort Memorial.
That's true, okay. Okay, that's all.
Good. Any other questions before we bring this to vote? Seeing no questions, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any objection to moving this to council? Seeing no objection, resolution passes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Munson. Thank you for coming. We look forward to you bringing many things before us again. So good job. Thank you, Hank.
Actually, you're going to see him on 9/12.
Okay. Well, Hank, then you're up again. We got a recommendation approval of a resolution to authorize the county administrator to sign necessary documents with Beaufort Memorial Hospital for mental health services at the detention center. So Hank,
All right.
floor is yours again. So thank you.
Thank you again. I'm back. This is another one of the original programs that was presented to council as came through with Jared and Heather and the committee to better serve mental health at the detention center with telehealth, et cetera. Phil Foote has been instrumental in the process and working with Beaufort Memorial on how we can better do this. Again, to demonstrate that by giving more resources on the front side with diagnosis, medical treatment on the front end of being booked, et cetera, limits expenses going to the ER, limits danger in transport, and also better treats the individual that has an issue from the minute they walk into the facility. So Phil and the hospital worked out this initial MOU to help better serve, and we will know if this is for a 3-year program. It could extend a little longer because, as you can see, there's ballpark $250 a year for 3 years. Because it's based on time and services, and this is a true pilot to show something, everything's not known. And so if we come in a little under, we would then go a little longer, et cetera. But like I said, for those reasons, it's very expensive in dollar sense when there's a crisis at the detention center and they have to go to the ER. That's only dollars. The danger is worse because then it's dangerous for the inmate, it's dangerous for the staff. And this way, from the second that person walks in, somebody that's qualified will be helping to identify issues, because it's not fair to the detention officer to have to operate as a psychiatric analysis person. And so this is another potentially extremely beneficial program because of saving. There's an upfront expense, but a long-term savings, and also the safety aspect.
Any questions for Mr. Munson?
I'd like to put it on the floor if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so move.
Second. All right. Any
Just when I look at the telemedicine is one thing, and I think a lot of doctors are moving into telemedicine, so I don't have a problem with that. And see where they're training detention staff to be able to handle, so that's all good as well. The part that I not question, but I wanted to know where does the number 10 come from for the physician on a monthly basis?
This is not only from the upfront assessment of the individual, but how do we serve them throughout their time there? When it's time to take the next medication, when their behavior changes and it's time to re-diagnose and change said medication. This is the ongoing treatment system, and I'll defer to Phil as the higher level expert, but this is not just telemedicine, because telemedicine can't handle a crisis situation.
Oh, no, I understand.
Right, so there'll be the front end person there that's helping to do the diagnosis and assessment, but the follow-up is the on-site doctor services for those that are in for a longer period of time that need continued attention.
And there's a number 10 there, 10 days, 10 hours or something. I'm just wondering, 10 hours a month. I'm just wondering where
That is
number
built,
10
if you'd
comes
like to
from.
answer that, Phil, but that's built from the on-the-ground information of what historically
I mean,
has
is it a
been.
realistic number or is it just a number arbitrarily put in there?
I'll leave that to you.
But 10 seems to be kind of low, but anyway.
Good afternoon. I appreciate your question. And what they're saying there is that they're estimating about 10 hours for the actual psychiatrist. There are going to be licensed social workers that will be on the ground, boots on the
Yeah,
ground.
I got that, yeah.
So that's what they're estimating, the amount of time that they're going to actually have to see a actual psychiatrist that will be making any kind of diagnoses or prescribing any kind of medication. 10 hours is just an estimate. We can certainly go for more. It can certainly go less. We just don't know. But that's what we're guesstimating right about now. And that's what typically we use in the past
From a
too.
historical perspective?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, so this is also from ARPA funds, and we've set aside $1 million, and we're guessing this program, or estimating this program is going to be 250,000 per year is kind of where we are right now. So
Estimate somehow, and so I kind of just guesstimated at what we have done in the past with the amount of inmates that had mental issues that we had to deal with. So it was a guesstimate.
all right, so at the end of hopefully 3 years, 4 years, that we'll then evaluate the program and decide future funding or if it's worthwhile or things like that.
I hope it is because, I don't want to prolong your meeting, but, and I don't want to get on my soapbox about mental health issues, but as you well know, I've been trying to champion that as much as possible, not only at the detention center, but also in the community. So I think I hope this program works well because we work well with Beaufort Memorial through the ER and they have a small mental health unit we call 2 East. So we all kind of deal with the same people in our community. They kind of go around that same circle all the time. And so we're kind of hoping that we can put a stop to that by us partnering up and that we can start doing some long-term care and trying to figure this problem out.
Good, very good. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned evaluating it after 3 years. I'm hoping that we get a periodic evaluation on this program to see how successful it is as we move forward, so that in 3 years we know whether we should be funding it or not. But I'm hoping that at least every 6 months or at least a year we get an update on how the program is actually.
Trust me, my staff and the inmates will be figuring that out in the first month. So as we see this program progress, we certainly are going to be evaluating it
Yes.
on a regular basis because we're going to know whether this is working or not relatively quick. Because if we're not getting the results that we need, certainly either myself or somebody else is going to speak up really quick, as you well know.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Glover, I mentioned the evaluation thing. Okay, we shouldn't have to put any more money into this for at least 3 to 4 years, hopefully. So that's the evaluation that I was looking at from the, but yes, would love updates for Mr. Glover and I think everybody else as well to see if this would work. So
Be
thank
happy
you.
to bring them to you.
Good, thank you for your initiative.
I had one more question. In the past, some states have already done this, but I don't think South Carolina has. Veterans and their medicines, when they enter a detention center, they lose that provision in South Carolina. I think Texas has changed it where if a veteran is in a detention center, his veteran benefits, his veteran medicines, all those things follow him. You think there'll be any opportunity to, at least locally, if a person is a veteran and has mental issues, that there'll be some continuity there if he or she's already receiving some type of veteran treatments?
I think so, and I think we have in the past worked with the VA to make sure there was a continuity of care for our veterans. Sometimes it's a little difficult because of the logistics and because of state law. It's very frustrating, like with Medicaid and Medicare, that it drops off once you become arrested. We have fought that. We understand it in the prison system when you become adjudicated and your state, your ward of the state, that's one thing. But when you're in pretrial status and you're not a ward of the state, we still don't understand why they're taking people's benefits away. Because the problem is not for us so much as it is for that person, an individual, that once they've dropped them, once they release from our custody, they have to go back through the process of getting back onto that. And that can be anywhere from 2 to 3 months that they're not going to have any kind of services, which is, we just feel is very frustrating for the individuals and for us too, that we watch this happen.
Thank you.
All right, we have a resolution authorizing the county administrator to execute documents with Beaufort Memorial Health. Is there any objection to that? Seeing no objection, we will move this on to county council. Thank you, Hank.
Chairman?
Yes.
Just one comment to Phil's point, the loss of those benefits for a couple, it doesn't seem to make any sense. And it seems to me we might be in a position to make that a priority, to be talking to our delegation that now has a lot of seniority, to see if we could fix that.
Good point. Very good point.
And we can also do it through SCAC because they sponsor legislation, so we will make a note of that and discuss that with them.
All right, very good. No more discussion. Let's move on then. Number 13, recommend approval of a resolution to adopt a fee schedule for planning and zoning permits. And Mr. Merchant, we have you coming forward. Thank you for coming today.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You have in your packet a proposed resolution adopting a fee schedule for planning and zoning permits. And just to give you a quick background, the current fee schedule that we use in our department, we've been using for the last 22 years. They were adopted not with the adoption of our existing code, but with the one previous to that, the Zoning and Development Standards Ordinance. So they are quite outdated. And so we wanted to revisit these fees. In that time, we adopted a new code, and we believe that there's more and more expected in the review process, professionally in our review of development proposals. And, we wanted to make sure that these fees were in line with, what other coastal high-growth counties are charging currently, and that they basically squared with the amount of work that was required of staff. And so we did a very careful analysis of our current fees. We looked at other neighboring counties in South Carolina along the coast and to see what they're charging as well. And I would want to draw some attention to Mark Davis, our deputy director. He was very meticulous in meeting with staff members, going through the steps of the process, exactly how much work, and where some of the snags are in the process that we thought using the fees would help, maybe provide a little more incentive to provide complete submittals, and help move the process forward. So we really looked at it in all those aspects. And we believe that this revised schedule, better reflects the work that we are conducting in our department, is more in line with what is expected in other communities. And so that's why we're bringing this forward. It's not required, but we would like to have this concurrent with the adoption of the new budget. That way we could start collecting them as the new fiscal year begins. So I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Merchant?
I don't know, I just need to understand your fee schedule, that's all.
Okay.
If a residential conceptual review is $500, is that the current fee or is that the proposed fee?
That is the proposed fee.
What's the current fee?
The current fee, and you have those with you, Mark? Zero. Oh, zero.
Zero. Oh.
Yeah. So currently
essence,
what we're seeing is, and this is basically a subdivision coming through the staff review team. And, a residential subdivision, for example, like Malin Bluff, they're coming in and they're, at the conceptual level, there's a lot of heavy lifting that's going on there. That's when we're looking at the tree survey, the natural resources survey. And the other thing we're finding is that sometimes people are coming in and having to come back to the committee. And that, of course, has taken a lot of staff time as well. But we felt it was important to have a separate submittal fee for conceptual and then for final. There's two-step process that occurs when it goes before staff. A single-family zoning permit, if somebody is building a house, that is much less. We're talking about a major subdivision, a developer coming in to, develop a residential subdivision.
Okay. Could you give me, at our before council meeting, just the old fee?
Yes, we
Okay,
can do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. York is Mr. Merchant, if you could take, and we see your fee right there, if you could make another column and just kind of put it in red or show us what the difference is and where the changes are being made from our old fee schedule to what you're asking for now. They could make it a lot simpler for us and the general population to be able to see exactly what the changes are. Again, if there's no fee, there was no fee before. If there is a fee now, and how much additional it is, and again, I think that's more of what we're looking for transparency inside to show exactly the differences that are made.
Okay, and we can do that as part of the council package submission. Is that the?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, that'd be great. Good. Stu?
In your example, the first one there, the $500, if there's a development of 200 units, is that 500 for all 200 units, or is that 500 times 200 units?
Conceptual, it's the same, but when it gets to final, there is a per lot fee as well. So a larger subdivision is going to cost more than a smaller. But there's kind of like a baseline of the types of things that we have to look at any development.
Well, one other thing to think about, we're always struggling with workforce housing, and fixed fees tend to penalize workforce housing more than others. I don't know if you'd want to consider waiving some of these fees for ones that are below a certain dollar amount if they're workforce housing. Just a thought.
Yeah, we can look into that, whether it's part of this fee schedule or whether it's, a separate program where similar to what we do with the impact fees.
Well, the impact fees are different, as I understand it, because they have to be paid. The only thing we can do is to replace those fees if we waive them, which we have a fund to do that.
Yes, Ms. Howard.
Sorry.
Yes, no, that's all right. The tree mitigation, we've had developers that just have paid and cut all the trees. So tree is defined as in the CDC, is that where these fees would apply for the size of the trees that are cut?
Yeah, and there's two different types of mitigation here. One is for specimen trees, and so those are larger trees defined by their species. And if somebody is removing them, as part of a development, then they're required to pay back per caliper inch. Okay. And what we did here, and I'll be honest, the current fee that we're charging for, somebody, if they have to mitigate, they have two options. They either plant a new tree on site, to plant back those caliper inches, or they pay into the tree fund. And the amount of money that we charge for a 2.5-inch caliper tree and a tree fund, I would say is about 30 to 40% of what it actually costs to go out. And so that has been a big criticism, is that it's so much easier to write a check than to, actually save trees on site or plant back. So that's something that this is designed to, we looked at what is, we called several nurseries, what is the going rate for a 2.5-inch caliper tree delivered and planted on site, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $530 or, so this
reflects that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, would point out that the biggest change in this fee schedule is also the fact that we have added a category for development agreement reviews, and that's based on the size of the project. So that's pretty typical now in low country jurisdictions that deal with a lot of development agreements. That will allow us to be able to development agreements are very labor intensive from a lot of staff, plus also legal review. So this will allow us to cover those costs as well.
All right, so we would be looking to move this on to council for approval. So I'd need a motion from someone for us to move this to council.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Robin. Any second?
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion?
We need, with the addition of the side-by-side.
Yes. Yeah, and I think you'll have that to us for that meeting or before, but obviously in the backup for that meeting.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, is there any objection to us moving this?
I have an objection.
All right. Mr. McCullen is objecting.
Yeah, I have an objection. I think that all of the work on this, something like this is supposed to be done in committee. This is a incomplete document. I think all of this should be presented to us in its final form before anybody takes any action to send it to the full council. Too many unanswered questions here, too much we don't know, and the committee's responsibility is to pass things forward that are done, not undone. So I'm going to object and vote no on moving it forward.
All right, we do have one objection, so Sarah, let's go ahead and call a roll call. Vote, please. Any other discussion?
If I could interrupt with a motion, sir. I take Larry's comment to heart, and I think it might perhaps be a better idea for us to delay this. There is no urgency to this, except that we'd like to be able to budget for this coming year. And, I'd really like to see the whole thing side by side as well. As I was looking through and doing my homework, I was going to raise those questions, but York beat me to it. And I'd like to see the whole thing laid out in a more comprehensive format before we vote on it. So I'd like to make a motion we delay decision on this until the next committee meeting.
All right, there's been an amendment to the motion. Is there a second to that?
A second.
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Glover, second it. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I have some discussion. I think I agree with what Mr. Llewellyn has said, but we have to have a clear understanding that for this to move forward, the committee has to get a fully explained document covering all of the aspects that were raised by members of the Finance Committee here today. Because I think even when we get that, there's going to be more questions asked when everyone has a chance to look at it. So I don't see this speeding through here until we have everything we need to have to make a fully informed decision on this matter.
You're right. You're right.
All right, so we have a motion to delay this currently. Any more discussion? No discussion. Is there?
The proper motion should be postponed to the next Finance Committee meeting.
August 22nd.
Yeah.
All right, so then, and Mr.
That's my motion, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you, Brian. All right, so we have a motion to delay this until our next, postpone, not delay, postpone into our next Finance Committee meeting. Is there any objection to that amended motion? Seeing none, that would pass without objection. So it has been delayed until further information is brought back to our next.
Postpone.
I said,
All right.
all right, I got it wrong too many times. It's been postponed until our next
We're going to
committee.
get that Mr. Chairman, we're going to get a fully formed document brought back to the Finance Committee at the next meeting, right?
I think what we'd expect is then to bring back the documentation and we'd get Mr. Merchant back up here again and have that information before our meeting so you can review it before you come to the meeting. And then we can have Mr. Merchant present it again to us and ask questions.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rob. All right. We do have 4 vacancies on the Board of Assessment and Appeals, which is open to anyone in the county. So obviously we're searching for anyone on that. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before our committee? Seeing nothing, we are adjourned. And Mr. Robin, you're up next with the public facilities.
Sarah, what do you need, about 5 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well.